attorney and former federal prosecutor Doug Burns. We welcome Doug back to the show. How you doing, Doug?
Good, thanks.
What do you make of these new bombing suspects that are being mentioned in the news, these friends of the suspected bombers?
Yeah, I mean, it's ancillary to the main crime. In other words, they're not charged with participating in the bombing. And to me, it implies that law enforcement, is really going after every conceivable angle, every conceivable aspect with the same goal in mind, which is figure out what exactly the parameters of those involved is. Were people from abroad involved? What about the trip to Russia for 6 months? Other people here involved. But basically, this complaint, which I went through pretty carefully, you have two students who came here on a student visa at the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth. They know the suspect. They see his face plastered all over the world. They end up over at his apartment, and they end up knowingly getting
What's
rid
up
of
with that, though?
that.
Why go to his apartment and throw away stuff?
Yeah, everybody keeps asking me that, and it really goes into the annals of one of the dumber crimes. I mean, seriously, think about it. The guy is a huge suspect. He gives you a backpack, and the complaint specifically says that the thing was essentially open, and you could see fireworks components visible, and they go ahead and throw it out. I mean, I literally cannot answer your question. Why would you be dumb enough to do that?
Now, it seems like such a boneheaded reaction.
It really is.
Instead of calling the cops and saying, hey, that guy, we know that guy,
yep,
and he gave us a backpack. Now, what charges are they facing, and how long might they go away to jail if convicted? Because they knew they had the picture, they had this suspicion that they were somehow connected to this case, and they decided to get rid of all this evidence. How long might they be locked up?
Well, there's an interesting twist on that, and I'm going to just point out that this is a complaint, so the indictment may differ. So just follow me. The underlying obstruction of justice charge is 0 to 20 years. However, and this is a big however, in this complaint they're charged with conspiring or simply agreeing to do it without necessarily, this is just legal talk, necessarily actually doing the obstruction. And that's a 5-year cap.
Wait a second. What does that mean? Because I thought the backpack and other stuff was in a landfill, and these guys were the ones who throw away all that stuff.
Yeah, right. But I'm just saying, no, that's a good correction. They're charging it for some reason as simply a conspiracy at this point and not the completed crime. I have no idea why that is.
Because they're trying to go easy on these guys? Because they were just
to encourage them to cooperate.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. But you made a good point, which was they did the crime, so why charge it only as a conspiracy? That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
And I think I just answered my own question, which is maybe to encourage them to cooperate. The indictment, however, could charge the underlying Section 1519, which is, knowingly altering or destroying evidence with the intent to obstruct an investigation.
Yeah.
The third individual, who's a U.S. citizen, is charged with lying to the FBI. That statute normally has a 5-year max, but when it relates to terrorism, it's an 8-year max.
Where are these guys from?
Two are from, abroad, I guess the
Kazakhstan,
Russia,
I believe,
region, and then one is a U.S. citizen. I'm not sure where he's originally from.
Doug Burns, attorney, former federal prosecutor, our guest on 710 KURV.
Doug, Tim Sullivan here. I mean, one of these guys said that once they did find out that Johar was among the bombers, they wanted to help him.
Oh, absolutely, Tim. I mean,
that has to mean a tougher charge here.
Well, that's right. I mean, I think, you're kind of reading my mind. The indictment they return will probably be the substantive obstruction of justice, which carries a 20-year maximum. But again, the U.S. sentencing guidelines, which are used to formulate a range, I looked in the guidelines book and I worked up the numbers. With nothing, beyond just the backpack stuff, it probably comes out only to about a 4 or 5 year sentence, honestly.
Do you know how these guys met? This Chechen kid, Johar, and the two Kazakh kids?
At school.
At school?
At school, yes, and basically
had something in common, I guess, language, culture.
Right, exactly, and either were in the same dorm, something like that. I don't have that exactly right, but basically they met at UMass.
Yeah, so much for the claim that they had no friends here in the U.S. or something like that.
Well,
right?
they weren't. They were from abroad.
That certainly exemplifies the old phrase.
They weren't Americans.
These two defendants with friends like this, right?
Yeah.
So who is this third kid? The American
the third
citizen?
He's a U.S. citizen. Also, I guess, a student, but he just happens to be a citizen. And basically, the reason why he's differentiated out in the complaint is that the FBI interviewed him over a period of a few days, and basically, ultimately, he denied certain things that were sort of manifestly obvious, also a dumb sort of situation, and then he admitted to him flat out that he lied. I think he denied, I'm just like flipping through my complaint, denied having been over at the apartment, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, to make dumb mistakes, I mean, that's common for people every single day, but at that age, it seems to happen
But at that level of seriousness, my God, if a friend of mine seriously, hypothetically, plastered all over the world, and then he says, Doug, come on over. By the way, here's a backpack. Please dispose of this. I mean, come on, that's ridiculous.
Their best hope is just to throw themselves at the mercy of the court, saying, look.
They will.
That's it.
You got that right. That's exactly what they're going to do.
They have some well-paid attorneys, too, don't they?
Well, I'm not so sure whether those guys were appointed or retained because I only caught them.
My producer, Fred, said that some of these guys they're loaded. They have like a lot of money.
Yeah, but sometimes those guys are on the court panels. I apologize. I don't know whether they're privately retained or appointed. I don't want to be unfair on that point. They, sometimes prominent lawyers are also on what's called the CJA list, and they do appointed work. So
the court should take one of the extra beamers one of these guys has and just pay for the attorney that way. Right. Thank you much, Doug. We'll keep in touch. Doug Burns, attorney, former federal prosecutor, our guest on 710 KURV.